Lawsuits. The word is music to the ears of many attorneys. How many attorneys do we have in the room today? Anyone? Oh, thank you. Come on out of the closet. That's right. That's right. Yes. I am proud, actually, to be an attorney. I went to the University of Texas School of Law. I have a doctor of jurisprudence. In the last several years, I've owned my own law firm. And it's fun. Lawsuits, a failure for you to manage diversity in your workplace, keeps many, many attorneys employed. The topic that I have been assigned is diversity. There are two different ways that I teach and train and look at diversity. The first way that I focus on diversity is I look at that end result. I look at what happens when you fail to manage and you have that inevitable lawsuit. How many of you in the room, your organization has never, ever, ever been sued or threatened to be sued? My goodness, one hand. Do we have a lot of lawsuits in this country? Do we have a lot of lawsuits? Anyone ever hear about any lawsuits? Okay. And do we have a lot of lawyers? Yes, we have over 1 million attorneys in this country. I have had the pleasure and the privilege and the challenge of dealing with diversity in the capacity as an attorney. What I mean is I have been hired by people who said their organization didn't manage diversity. They said they were victims of sexual harassment. They said they were victims of age discrimination or racial discrimination or religious discrimination. And then I have represented them and sued their company. Yes, I have. And I've sued small businesses. And I've sued medium-sized businesses, and I've sued large companies. I've sued American Airlines several times. Yes, yes. Diversity is a very serious issue. And I could stand here all day long and talk about lawsuits and talk about the amounts of money that are paid out because your organization doesn't take this seriously. Has anyone ever heard of the phrase punitive damages? Has anyone ever heard of that phrase? What does that mean? Anyone? Punishing. Punitive means punishment, and damages means money. So we're talking, yes. Oh, I love it. We're talking about punishment money. Punitive damages, punishment money. Yes. And as we all know in the room, if we fail to train, meaning if you don't have that mandatory training for your managers and supervisors on sexual harassment and ADA, and Title VII and ADEA, these are all just diversity laws, federal laws. If you don't train on it, then your organization is going to be exposed to punitive damages, punishment money. And these can be very large amounts of money. So lawsuits can be a problem for many organizations. And the solution, the truth, the solution is in the palm of your hands to stop these lawsuits. The solution is the training. The topics that I train on, most of them, are ones that are mandatory. If you fail to train on sexual harassment, you fail to have your managers understand ADA, then when you are sued, and it's not a question of if, but just when and for how much, then the fact that you fail to train these managers is going to expose your company to these punitive damages. So we have to do it. We have to train. That's true, absolutely, positively. Now, managing diversity is one of the most important skills in life. It is. Managing diversity is something that we do in our personal lives and our professional lives. Diversity, the word, what does it mean? Differences. Differences is the presence of differences. I read that in the dictionary. Now, in our personal lives, do you have any people in your families who are different than you are? Yes, I do. I manage diversity every holiday, every get-together. And right now I'm in the midst of planning my family reunion, and I'm going to be managing a lot of diversity to pull this off. Additionally, in our professional lives, we manage diversity, and I've had the opportunity in my life to wear many different hats. As I mentioned, in the last several years, I've worn my attorney hat. So what I do when I wear my attorney hat is I go to my office and I have consultations with clients, and then I'm talking to them about things, and many times I'll say things to clients. I do criminal defense work, so I'll say to my clients, for instance, it's not a good idea for you to stun gun your girlfriend and throw her out of a truck. Yes. I do business law. I represent a lot of small business individuals. So I had a client a couple months ago who was a movie production company, and they were raising a lot of investment money. And they were raising it for the purpose of their company. And the officers of the company, my clients, they failed to heed my advice, and they went out and they spent all the investment money on new cars for themselves and trips. Is that okay? Are we supposed to take the investment money and spend it on things for ourselves and then lie? No. When I wear my attorney hat and I say things like this to adults I have to deal with and manage diversity there in my professional life, do we have instances in society where people do things that they're not supposed to do? Do we have any public stories right now of any companies that maybe have been caught doing things they weren't supposed to do? How does that happen? How does that happen? Enron and WorldCom, how does this happen? Greed is a lot of it. Is it that the individuals involved, they don't know that they're not supposed to do that? They probably knew they were supposed to be doing that. So what did they tell themselves? They knew they weren't supposed to do it. These are very intelligent, well-educated people. Why did they do that? Why did they do the wrong thing?
Thought they could get away with it.
Yes, they said it's not going to happen to me. I'm going to get away with it. It's not going to happen to me. They know other people have been caught. They knew other people had suffered consequences. This mentality of it's not going to happen to me is pervasive in our culture, and it's also one of the problems I face when I wear my training and consultant hat. I am impassioned about this training for these diversity issues, the ADA and the Title VII and the ADEA. I'm impassioned, and sometimes I'll work with companies and clients, and I'll be explaining to them, you have to have this. You have to. And what do they think when they tell me, no, we're not going to train on it? What are they thinking?
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen here. We haven't been sued lately. Everything will be okay. So I've had the opportunity to deal with diversity wearing my attorney hat and wearing my training and consulting hat. And as I've traveled around the country with national seminars and worked with some of my clients, I have been shocked and amazed at the things I've heard that companies are doing that are failing to manage diversity, just blatant violations of the law. I've also previously worked as a university professor. And in doing that, I had to deal with students and other team members. And one time I had to wear my manage diversity hat. I had a student. I was teaching business law at the University of Texas at Austin. And I had 300 students in my sections, in my classes. This is a large college. It has over 51,000 students enrolled. And I had a young man come to me, and I had 3 exams I gave over the semester. And he came to me and he said, well, that exam that we have coming up next week, I need you to reschedule it for all 300 students because my fraternity is going to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and it's imperative that I be there, and so I can't take your test. So can you reschedule it for all 300 students? What did I say? That's right. I said no. I manage the diversity, the differences, in a way that's appropriate using the communication skills and the leadership skills that we've talked about today. I also put myself through school, and in doing so, worked a lot of different types of jobs. How many of us have put ourselves through school? Yeah. When you put yourself through school, many times in life, you're in a position where if you don't work, you don't eat. So consequently, I've worked almost every type of job out there. I've been in food service, I've been a pizza delivery driver, and a waitress, and a bartender. And I've been in sales. I was a telemarketer for a company called First USA. Has anyone ever heard of that company? Yes, they sell credit cards. And what I would do, I called this part of the country. I'd call you at home while you were eating dinner, and I'd try to sell your credit card over the phone. And what did you do sometimes? Sometimes you hung up on me. Did that hurt my feelings? No, why didn't it hurt my feelings? Because I knew how to manage diversity, differences in the workplace, and I was trained in telemarketing. They trained us to smile and to dial, and that's what I did. Just pick up the phone and call the next person. I also worked for almost 2 years in a very challenging job. I was a professional psychic for the Psychic Friends Network. Has anyone seen the commercials? Madame Cleo.
Were you Cleo?
Same company with Madame Cleo, that's the same company that I worked for. When I worked for them, we had Dionne Warwick as our spokesperson. I've worn many hats. I know the mentality that many organizations and individuals will have to fail to have the training. Managing diversity is crucial to organization. I could re-emphasize over and over again what the consequence will be. It will be lawsuits. So what I have are 2 different distinct programs for managing diversity. The first one's going to be for your managers and your supervisors, and that's where we're going to bring them in and we're going to teach them what are these federal laws that they have to know. What are they? So there are things like sexual harassment and racial discrimination, age discrimination, people with disabilities, the 1990 ADA law. I do a lot of sexual harassment training. Sexual harassment. And I know that sometimes when I come in for this training that's mandatory for your supervisors and managers, some people are not thrilled to be there. They're just not thrilled to be there. So what I do is I use examples and cases from my own experience to make your team members understand what's in this for me. Because many people come to training and their attitude is, so what? I don't care if the company's sued. I'll even go to companies that have been sued, and the reason I'm there to train is part of the settlement of the lawsuit, and still encounter the same attitude. So what? I don't care. So what I do is I use cases and I use behavioral models that will teach your team members what they need to know and teach them how to use it. We'll integrate it with the leadership skills. The other diversity program I have is for non-managerial personnel, and that one is where we're going to teach them the core values of diversity in the workplace. The number one value you have to manage diversity in the workplace is something called respect. We're going to teach your team members how do you give respect in the work environment, how do you get respect in the work environment, and the difference between respect and liking. Those are my two programs. Managing diversity, it can be done. There are organizations that I go to that have implemented the appropriate training programs, they have the leadership in place, and they do have very little lawsuits, very little liability exposure. It can be done. The three keys that I've identified for managing diversity are consistency. Your organization has to be consistent in how you treat every team member. Your employee handbook, your manual, policies, and procedures. How many of you have read your employee handbook? Oh, I'm so impressed. I'm so impressed. How long ago? It's always amazed me. When I have clients come to my office when I'm wearing my attorney hat and people come to my office and they say, well, when I was hired, I never read that employee handbook. But now that I feel that I've been a victim of racial discrimination or age discrimination, these people will come to my office, they'll have read the whole handbook. And they'll have highlighted the sections where they think your company violated their own policy, put little stars next to it. And what they're doing is they're researching and they're directing me to where they think they have the strongest cause of action. Every time you deviate from the policies in your own handbook, then you open the door for that person to say, the reason you treated them differently was because of their race, their color, their age, their disability. You've got to have consistency. So that's why when I work with your managers, we're going to work on these leadership skills. How do I lead? How do I have assertiveness? The second thing you have to have is confidentiality. I do a lot of investigations also. As a consultant, I do investigations where I come in as an impartial party to your organization. There's an allegation of sexual harassment. I'm going to do an appropriate investigation. It amazes me that companies that have what they call an investigation, and I'll have this happen. The person who's doing the investigating of the allegation will call the subject of the investigation and say, I know this is off the books, and I'm not really supposed to tell you, but today I was interviewing some of the witnesses, and this is what they said. Will that come up later in court? Training, investigation, documentation. You have to have consistency. You have to maintain confidentiality. So a lot of us don't have the appropriate management skills and we can't maintain confidentiality. And the third thing is compliance. Compliance with, yes, your internal policies and procedures, and you have to be in compliance with these federal laws. Many times I do diversity training and I'm shocked at the people who say, oh, it's a law for us to discriminate against old people? We didn't even know that. Yes, it's a federal law. It applies everywhere in the country. And in fact, at what age are you old under federal law? 40. That's right. ADEA, Age Discrimination Employment Act. I'm old at 40, 40 and up. I'm spreading the word. You have to have compliance with these laws, and also when I come into your organization, I'll customize compliance with your state laws, because different states will have drastically different state statutes on their diversity. And we're going to integrate all of that. So in one day, we can take those managers and supervisors and get them to buy into this training. I'm going to answer the question of what's in it for me. I also answer the question, why should I care about this? We're going to focus on diversity internally, team members getting along with each other. We're also going to look at diversity externally, because we know in the global marketplace we've got to deal with diversity with our customer base, no matter what industry we're in. So the cultural diversity to deal with our clients appropriately. In closing, I have I believe, one of the best jobs in the world. I enjoy every day when I get up out of bed. And when I have the opportunity to come and train and work with your organization, we're going to problem solve existing issues, and we're going to put you in a position so that when eventual litigation does occur, you'll be able to defend that as strenuously as possible. I look forward to training and consulting and working with you. And for those of you who've sat through this and thought to yourself, you know what, I really don't care about diversity. I just don't care. Then for those of you, I look forward to one of your current or former employees hiring me as an attorney to sue your organization. So I'll see you on the front end to prevent it, or I'll see you on the back end. Either way, it's up to you. I thank you very much. I hope you have an enjoyable Friday, and it's time for lunch. Thank you. Thank you.